she is your counselor. So she and I will be leading the discussion today on course selection, and we will be sending out the PowerPoint to all parents and put it on our website. So if you miss anything, you can go back and review it. So she's going to go ahead and start with the first part, and then I'll come back for the second part.
Yes, so the first part we're going to do the rising 7th grade. Now I'm just curious, how many of you have a rising 7th grader? Oh, wow, okay. I thought there'd be more 8th grade here.
No, you know.
Yeah, all right. All right, so the course selection timeline, the teacher recommendations for all grade levels were loaded onto Phoenix on January 22nd. So if you go onto Student View or Parent View, you can kind of see what courses you were recommended, or your student was recommended to take next year. You can't change those, but what we can do is change the electives. So this will work. Okay. Everyone has honors in their course description. That doesn't necessarily mean that anything is a higher level. Everything is just kind of like blanket. We have personalized learning. So it's not, every individual will have rigorous coursework within their classroom based on their abilities, but everyone gets the honors blanket statement for their course selection. So yeah, all honors because classes are heterogeneous. Focus is on a mastery of content. Differentiation is based on need and personalized learning. The only difference is for math. So we'll have accelerated, algebra, and grade level math. So on the 12th, I am going into resource classes, and we are going to walk the kids through selecting their elective courses. So we'll have them choose what they want to take next year, basically. They will have until February 22nd to make changes. So if you guys don't really like the ones that they picked, or you want to suggest that they take something else, you guys can go in with them at home and make changes until February 22nd. And if you would like to discuss a level change to a math recommendation, that's something that we can do with the teacher, and you can kind of let me know if it happens after the fact, if you want to discuss a change if it happens after February 22nd. So the required courses go for English, Life Science, U.S. History, and a Math. And the students currently in Math 6 will go to Math 7. Students currently in Accelerated Math 6-7 will go to Algebra 1. And all 7th graders will have 45 minutes of resource or spectrum. And Math 8 is sometimes recommended for students who maybe didn't do the best in the 6-7. So they weren't ready to be recommended to go to Algebra 1 necessarily, but they still want to move forward, so they'll go to Math 8. Also required is Health and PE, and then like we had keyboarding and art during 6th grade, they will have half of the semester, half the year in Tech Ed and Family Consumer Science, and that will be random based on the scheduling availability to select what half of the year they'll take either. Okay, and then all 7th graders will choose one fine arts elective, and that will be band 7, and string 7, chorus, guitar 7, or art 7. So we don't have like percussion or high brass or low brass. It's not separated off into classes like that anymore. Now everything is just band. And then all 7th graders will choose a language elective or coding. So a language elective is communication studies, Spanish 1, German 1, Latin, French 1. They're all high school credit classes, but not all students should start a world language in 7th grade, but it is the only way to reach the AP level by senior year, so just keep that in mind. So they can take communications. There is limited space in the coding at middle school. Now coding is super cool for middle schoolers to get into if they're good at math and they enjoy math, because it is very heavy in math. Sorry, I'm over here throwing things. You didn't do anything, I'm sorry. So coding at middle school, we're going to pick who gets into this class based on a lottery. So your child can select coding and basically enter themselves into the lottery to see if they get the opportunity to take coding, if they really enjoy math and they're kind of interested in like the IT kind of side of things, which is a great field to get into. So as long as they enjoy math and they have some skill level in math, I would say you can go ahead and enter yourself into that lottery by selecting that in their elective choices, which we will be doing together on the 12th. And then as a side note, that it does have limited space, so we'll be picking just the class size that we have available. So they'll need to pick an alternative just in case there isn't space. So we'll know where to put them if they don't make the lottery, if they don't win the lottery. But last year, there wasn't too many. We were able to fit them all in.
Yeah, last year I was able, the way everything worked out, we have 2 classes and we were able to get every student in, so
Yeah.
we'll see.
Because it's very heavy in math, and
Yeah.
there are some kids that just aren't math people, which is okay. But coding at middle school is just very focused on math, so just something for them to be aware of what they're getting themselves into. Okay, Rising 8th.
Okay.
That's all for me. If you have questions about anything in specific, I'll be hanging around here too for my Rising 7th parents, and always available via email or phone call, so feel free to reach out. I'll be as helpful as I can, and if I don't know the answer, then I'll find it out.
Thank you, Ms. Blevins. Okay, so there's more to the Rising 8th grade information, and some of the stuff I'll go over will be important and applicable to your Rising 7th graders also. So just go over the timeline, and I've already started course selection with half the grade level. We chose classes in FACS last week. I was going to do the tech ed, but we had the snow days, so the kids who currently have tech ed, we're going to be doing course selection Monday and Tuesday. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about are the same things that I've talked to your children about, and so we'll kind of be going over that same information. The core classes, the math, the English, and science and history were preloaded, okay, into our into their course requests. And so you can go in and you can see that list that's in there. It's viewable for parents and for students. The world language for current students, there's actually a mistake on there. PE was not preloaded. It's not in there. So let me tell you that PE and resource will be loaded later. So when you go in and see the list and then their electives, you'll say, oh, this doesn't look complete. But we mass add those classes later on.
That's same for Rising 7.
Yeah,
too.
same
You won't see those.
Yeah,
You'll
you
just
won't
see
see
the
that.
recommended academic courses.
Right, so there's one little, that actually was not I think maybe we were going to, but then we didn't. Okay, so world language for current students, if your child is currently taking a language, then the teacher preloaded in there whether or not they believed your child should move on to level 2 or repeat level 1. And for a high school level class, it's really a nice idea to repeat the class unless you're getting a really, really good grade in there and have full understanding of the material. And I'll talk more about that as we get to the language slide. And we do tech ed and FACS is how we were doing it through 7th grade. If your child was absent, or they'll be absent Monday and Tuesday, not to worry. All the kids who are absent, we're going to have a makeup session, so no problem there. One thing that was required, is also required this year for Rising 8th graders, current 7th graders, is to do a basic academic and career plan. So if any of your children had FACS last week, they should have brought that plan home because it actually has to be signed and brought back. And this is something we have to put into their cumulative file as something that we have done with students. It's a required state, it's a state requirement that children have been exposed to an academic and career plan, part of our planning process, and that includes career clusters. I'll talk a little bit more about that too as we get to that.
Is that just for Rising 8th graders?
Right, we do it in 7th grade for Rising 8th graders. That's the year they've decided that we do this. Now, every year, especially in high school, the counselors go over all the classes and look ahead. But this is the year that we do the overview, and you'll see a picture of it when we get to it, that it's required that they really look ahead and make a pathway. It changes, nothing is set in stone, that's what I told them, but we need to know that they have a plan. Okay, so here I put this in green. You have till February 22nd to make the changes, and you can only make them to the electives only. Everything else is locked in there. After the 22nd, everything will be locked, and if you need to make a change, you have to make it through the counselor. So, and again, with the math courses, if you want to make a change, it's always best to start with the teacher, and then we get together and we look at what's best for that student. So the required courses for 8th grade, we have English. Our history this next year is civics. They've had U.S. history for 2 years. Now they go on to civics to study the government and economics. And their science next year is physical science. This year they had biological science. Again, all at the honors level, we have just one, one curriculum, and then we differentiate and use personalized learning within the classroom. So math for rising 8th graders. If you were in Math 7, you're going to mostly go to Algebra 1 and some go to Math 8. Kids who took Algebra 1 will go to Geometry, or some will repeat Algebra 1. Because remember, high school class taken in middle school, sometimes you need that foundational year, repeat it, really get that understanding so that you'll be successful all the way through high school. And then some students took Geometry and they go to Algebra 2 Trig. Health and PE is a requirement. That'll be loaded later. And then resource is next year for current 8th graders. They have a full block of resource. That's different than 6th and 7th grade where their elective piggybacks their resource, 45 minutes and 45 minutes. Next year they have a full 90 minutes. They have so much more opportunity to get their work done, meet with their teachers, do what they need to do. If your child has Spectrum, they have 45 minutes of Spectrum within that time and then 45 minutes of resource. So even Spectrum students will have some resource. So then what that does is that leaves our students here with 2 elective choices. Again, sometimes it's nice to see the math progression in a visual. If your child, especially for these current 6th grade parents too, if your child's in Math 6, next year they'll go to Math 7, and then for Math 7, either Algebra or Math 8. And for students who were in accelerated Math 6-7 in 6th grade, they either went to Algebra 1, high school credit class, or Math 8, which is like pre-algebra. They redesigned the math curriculum some years back. We used to have actually a class called pre-algebra, but Math 8 is what we would call pre-algebra now. And so from algebra, you're either recommended to go to Geometry, repeat algebra, and then the Math 8 students automatically go to algebra. And so this is the basic curriculum. Geometry goes to Algebra 2 Trig, but that's just for a few students. So this is a big piece I spent on with your students, and I will with the ones in Tech Ed too, about the world language in middle school and how it all works and what you need, and the fact that it's a high school credit class. So we have 2 diploma types. We have an advanced diploma and we have a standard diploma. The advanced diploma requires 26 or 27 credits. The standard is 22. Right now, we all are looking at students to consider that advanced diploma, especially in middle school. And so if you want this advanced diploma, the language is one of the biggest parts of it. And you need either 3 years of one language or 2 years of 2 different languages to just get the advanced diploma. And that's actually not very hard to get because we start language in 7th grade for a lot of students. So an example would be you just need Spanish 1, 2, or 3, or you would do like 2 years of German, and then you'd switch and do 2 years of French. So if students start their language in 7th grade and you stay with that same language, you will have that AP level in your senior year. Now, some upper levels also offer something called dual enrollment. Right now, we have German 5 as a dual enrollment class. Our teacher, Ms. Buckwalter, who teaches German, she teaches it here and also at the high school, and she is qualified to teach the dual enrollment college class. So if when your students get to high school, there may be more opportunities for dual enrollments in the languages. And so that's just something to keep in mind. Now, I'm just gonna put a little plug in here about getting the AP. Some of your students won't start language till 8th grade. There's a few that won't start till 9th grade. But if you want to get an AP and you didn't start in 7th grade because you're taking coding, which a lot of kids are taking, the coding, or in 8th grade when I talk about robotics, you take that and you want something else. We do have online summer courses that are available, and it's through Virtual Loudon, and they're only for the languages 1 and 2, and to the 3rd level for Spanish and French. Can't do it in middle school, only between 8th and 9th grade. There is a fee for these classes, but it is an option for students between 8th and 9th grade to take a level 1 or a level 2 class to bump you up and get some other electives, or just to get to the AP level. Now, one other thing that I told the students, and I'm going to tell you too, is with world language, if you get to the 4th or 5th level, you don't go to the AP, that's fine, or you go to the AP, but by the time you get to the 4th level, you actually get that in an honors level weighting, which is a 0.5. An AP is a full point added to the grade point average, and I'll show you what I told the students when we get to the GPA page. So for some students, they might say, well, I have these other electives that I want to take. I don't probably want to go to the AP, but boy, if I get to the 4th level or the 5th level, I still get that honors weighting, and that's there no matter what. And they just get more of a fullness in that language while they're debating about all the other great electives that are out there. So let's go on. So for Harper Park, our world languages in level 1 or 2 are Spanish, German, Latin, and French. These are high school credited classes, so they do start their GPA. I told the students, it's not listed on here, but for our academic plan, right now Heritage offers 2 additional languages in the high school. One is American Sign Language, and that does count for a world language. So if your child's interested in working with the deaf and hard of hearing, or they just want something that's more kinesthetic, then that's a nice option for them. The other language we have is actually Russian right now. We used to have Mandarin Chinese. They don't offer that now, but they offer Russian. And so I haven't had too many students actually say, wow, I want to, kind of fit that in yet. But right now, that's what is offered. Who knows, in a year or two, they can have something else. So this is what we have now. Okay, so the main thing that the rising 8th graders are doing was choosing 2 of their electives. And one elective is a world language. So it seems like, oh gosh, we got lots of choices. But one is the language. So that really leaves one more choice if your child's taking a language. And I've had some students say, oh, I want to take this one and this one. And there are many choices. So that's why I mentioned about the language over the summer, but with the fee, if you're interested. Our options are by department. Music department is band, strings, guitar, and chorus. Band, strings, and guitar, you must have some prerequisite training in those 3 areas. So you have to be enrolled in the classes unless you've had some outside private lessons, and then we can talk to the teachers about that. No prerequisite for chorus. And then art, if your students really like art, if they haven't taken art before or they want to start with art, that's excellent choice for them too. It's a great class. And then I don't know if in the back you guys can see going down here. The next 3 classes on here consider our career and technical classes. That's family and consumer science. That is tech ed, and it's robotics, which is in its 2nd year, and I'm going to have a whole slide on robotics. And so those are our career and technical classes. And then the last one down there, if you can see, this is a new class for us. It's called Dramatics Exploration. It's a new class for the county, and we are going to offer it here. Space is going to be limited, and I have information on the next slide on robotics and then on dramatics. So let's go on. Okay, this comes right from the program of studies. This is what technology robotics encompasses. Students engage in the study of computers and microprocessors and their applications to manufacturing, transportation, and communication systems. Topics include computer equipment and operating systems, robotics, programming, control systems, and social, cultural impact of these technologies. Problem-solving activities challenge students to design, program, and interface devices with computer systems. Learning activities include robotics, computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing and design, and control of electromechanical devices. So I told the students, you know, if you're somebody like engineering, STEM-oriented, IT-oriented, this is actually an excellent class. And the thing I didn't mention a minute ago was that this class is actually a high school credited class, believe it or not. So it actually starts or is included in your grade point average. And it's something that is on the transcript when you apply to colleges. So this is, like I said, in its second year, high school credit class, a good opportunity. Space is very limited. So when the students are selecting their classes, robotics had to have an alternative choice. And we will have to do a lottery for this grade class. The next here, just to let you know, it's in the second year, it's rigorous. It does require some higher level thinking, you know, think about, is that really what we should, consider for my child? Is that a good class for them? But you do get that high school credit, and we will have the lottery. So dramatics exploration, we will offer this for the first time next year, and here's how it's explained through the program of studies. Exploratory dramatics will provide students with an introduction to the study of performance, theater history, dramatic literature, and theatrical production through research, planning, scripting, production, and performance experiences. Students will acquire skills in communicating ideas, critical thinking, and collaborative problem solving. This course prepares students for further theatrical study in high school. Again, limited space. Now, this doesn't preclude your child from taking any kind of drama class, theatrical class in high school. This is just a kind of an interesting foundational. It's going to be a fun class. It's going to get them excited about drama and theatrics in high school. No, it's not a high school level class, but it is a new middle school option for one of our electives. So I want to reiterate what our high school credit courses are. Our robotics is Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Trig, and then all the world languages. So some of your students are going to be leaving middle school with a big handful of high school credits, that possibility. What I've told the kids, though, true with everything, even through high school and the plan, you need to find, when you find your path, you don't need to be taking the top of everything. You need to have a balance, because there's so much stress in our world, and we have so many opportunities. Find your path. Is it robotics? You know, is that the class you take? Some people are just math whizzes, and they want to take math in the summer because they want to be the highest level math they can possibly be. And some people like world languages is my thing. I've even had some students say, "Can I take 2 languages?" Because I just want to learn so many languages. So it's all going to be based on their individual preferences. Now, this is what I went over with the students, and most of you may know this, especially if you have older children, but the kids don't know this. And so I tried to get them to, see how things will be factored in that grade point average. When you wind up taking even one class in middle school, you need to understand how this works. And most students will wind up with at least, a couple.
So we have our numerical grading system right here in the dark, and the kids are familiar with that. And so if you get an A, it's like a 93 to a 97, okay? And they're familiar with that, and some of them, you know, oh, I got that 98, I get that A plus. Well, the GPA is an equivalent C number that is converted. So an A converts to a 4.0, and that's what then determines your grade point average, what you use to apply to colleges or post-secondary pathways. So if the student gets an A, like in algebra, I ask the kids, what do you get? Okay, 4.0. Okay, great. Then let's say you get an A plus in this algebra class that you might be currently taking. Okay, they could kind of determine a 4.3. And then even, you know, if you get a B plus, it's more than the 3.0, it's a 3.3. The minuses dip you down, a minus 0.3, but all this gets factored in. So I asked them if you're taking algebra and you're getting an A, and you're taking Spanish and you're getting a B, what would be your grade point average? And most of them could figure out by explanation that it was a 3.5, and that's, you know, how you accumulate all your information. Now, I said to them, does anybody remember, and I didn't tell you guys this, but I kind of specifically said to them, when you go to that level 4 or 5 in a world language, do you remember how much weight was added to your GPA? Does anybody remember here? Because the kids, the 0.5. Okay, so good job. So I said to the kids, because we're doing this plan, if you go to that 4th level or 5th level of your language and you get an A, what are you going to have? 4.5. And you don't, it's just automatically added there. And then if you get the A plus, you get a 4.8. So I wanted them to see how going to those classes, you know, stretching yourself to get to that level could be important for your grade point average. I also told them, and I'm telling you guys too, is that any honors class in high school has a 0.5 weight to it. So even in 9th grade, if you take honors English, you get a 0.5, because when we get to high school, the curriculums are totally different. And so the expectations are totally different. And that's why we have that. So again, I said, yeah, this is important to know this, because if your teachers have recommended that you repeat a language or repeat your math, take that into high consideration. Because even with a B minus, you have a 2.7 that you're taking to high school that's factored into all your grades. Would you be better off repeating it, getting a higher B or an A? Especially if you repeat it, you most likely, if you have a B minus, you're going to be getting into the A range. And when you're in middle school, you have these options, you have these choices. It gives you like a chance to try some things without having the finality of the grades like when you get into high school. So, okay, so there we go with that.
May I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Is 7th grade world language also considered a
Yes.
high school level?
Yes, that's why it's important. Yeah, exactly. You start in 7th grade, high school level. If you start algebra in 7th grade, high school level. So that's why it's important for everybody to know that. And so here's the copy of the academic and career plan worksheet that we went over, and there were a couple things that we wanted to specifically look at because of our advanced diploma. And it's probably pretty hard for you to see, but you'll all be getting one that comes home, and you can look at it a little more thoroughly. So what we did was we started over here in 7th grade, and we looked down here, and I had the students determine if they were in communications, coding, reading, or they started their language, and they wrote that in there as part of their plan. And then they wrote in their elective, you know, band or chorus or art. So we kind of had our 7th grade done, because most of it's already, I have pre-populated with what they need to take. The main thing we really looked at then too was our math.
because this is an important thing that we've done with students over the years with a plan. But now the plan is more official, and it's something that is required actually to be signed and put into their files. But if your child's in Math 7 this year, or like for you all that are, rising 7th grade parents, if your child's in Math 7 next year, you can, just kind of follow along. And they were recommended for Math 8, then their progression goes all the way down here, and they wind up in 12th grade with pre-calculus, advanced algebra. Now, there are some times where there are some classes that are maybe dropped down, or there's classes that actually can accelerate students, but these are the general progressions. So if your child stays on this track, this is where they'll wind up. Now, this year, some of the students took Math 8, and then there are the kids who took Math 7, and they were recommended for algebra, okay? Automatic Math 8, and then our Math 7 students go to algebra or Math 8. So your students will then go through this progression, and they're going to wind up with an AP calculus class in 12th grade. And an AP class, you have a weight of 1 on that, so that's, instead of a 4.0, you'd have a 5.0. And then if your child's in algebra this year, looking down here, you're going to have 2 AP classes in 11th and 12th grade. And then geometry students, they'll be taking Algebra 2 Trig next year. They kind of bump up to math analysis. They get BC calculus, they kind of skip AB. Then they go to multiple variable calculus, and then they usually do some kind of AP elective, or they run out of things, or they go to maybe to the college campus and take a higher level math. So sometimes we look at trying to accelerate, and then we go, whoa, we need to, because look, we're going to be getting a lot of math regardless. And then for history, basically we just kind of looked at the different histories throughout high school. The one thing to just say about science, in 9th grade, most of the students take earth science, but some students do take biology. It's an honors level, and you need to have, I'll just tell you guys this, you need to have 3 different sciences for that diploma. And then the other thing we looked at in detail was just where are we going to fit our language in, because if we want that advanced diploma, we need to have the 3 levels or the 2 and 2. They were only required to fill in up to 9th grade, but for most of them, I said, if you kind of have an idea about your language, fill it all in. So it was either 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and I put in there these honors levels in the AP. And then for electives, we put in our electives for 8th grade, and then we don't know anything further. One thing I mentioned to them too is that economics and personal finance is a required class. We put it in the academic and career plan right here, but it can be, it kind of can go a lot of different places, and they even offer it online as a course that can be taken, and so you don't have to give up other electives. PE, whoops, oh my gosh, what happened? Is it just that? Oh, it's just that, okay, it just got tired. Okay, so, what was the other thing? Oh, PE ends at 10th grade. So then you open up more electives. Okay, so that's the academic and career worksheet. Then the students were required to pick a career cluster. Now, if your students were here last year, this didn't hold true for the current 6th graders, but for the 7th graders last year, we did career cluster exploration in keyboarding classes, and the students actually picked some career clusters. It's just going to work a little bit differently going forward. It's going to be heavy duty in 7th grade now. So the kids who already had facts, we've done this big career cluster a second time, and we looked at careers, and we housed these stuff in Naviance. You can go back and look. For the tech ed students that just moved to facts, we didn't do it in big detail yet, but they all were exposed to it last year. So I put all the career clusters
on the sheet, and they were able to go through here, check the ones that they were interested in, and we could come up with one for the sheet. And this is just a general pathway again. We'll be doing something every year related to career and college exploration with the students. So the whole goal is that the kids start looking at pathways, and when you look at your pathways, then that helps determine your selections for your classes. You know, I'm interested in IT or STEM, so maybe I should consider that robotics. You know, I'm interested in, you know, the arts, so maybe think about that dramatics exploration or different options when you're in high school. This is just a sample of an advanced study diploma, and the main things to think about, the differences are between the standard are your, that you need the 4 credits in your core classes instead of 3 for your core classes. And the world language, either 3 years of one language or 2 and 2. And everybody takes personal finance and electives. It's just a general thing, just to know there's like 26 or 27. A lot of kids will be having more of that, more than this, because there's so many choices.
So the elective 3 credits means one, like we can take in robotics this year.
That would consider one. That would be
And then
considered
in
one
ninth
elective.
and in ninth grade there should be another elective.
Yes. Oh, yeah. There's you're not gonna have any trouble getting the electives in.
Ah.
Yeah, you really won't. No. Yeah.
So let's say we don't take robotics because kids are interested in something else.
Right.
So we have options to take something other elective credit courses in high school.
In high school, yeah, because if you looked on the plan, if you look back on the plan here, you have electives every year in high school. You've got
Those are
electives,
high
yeah.
school credits.
And then if you don't take world language, like if you end your world language, then that opens up more electives here too. So think about that.
Do you only need 3 years of it?
Please,
3 years
counselor.
of a language or 2 years of 2 languages?
languages.
Different languages, right.
So 4 total years of 2 different languages or 3
Three
years
of one language.
to graduate high school?
Not to graduate, just to get the advanced diploma. You still will graduate. You don't have to have language. You know, there are some kids who aren't going to take language. They aren't. They might just take 1 or 2 years. It's just not their thing. They might consider going over, you know, to our Monroe Career and Technical Academy now that I wasn't really going to get into here. You know, just have just a different pathway. You can go to college with a standard diploma. The standard diploma just really is, you know, if you don't have the languages. Most of the kids are going to take the 4 years of the core classes. That would be very unusual. But some kids may not take the language. And I've gone to college fairs, and I've asked them about this because we get so caught up with the language. And I said, what about the language? Da, 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 da. And if your kids are not interested in non-language kinds of careers, they don't care that much about it, is what they've said. But some colleges, you know, they require you have some. So that's why we look ahead, and that's why we actually do college searching, because we start to see what do the colleges require. Sometimes you just have to take more of those beginning language classes when you get to college. You know, they might be required that way. Did you have a question, Joe?
Yeah, can they take 2 languages at the same time?
Yes, yes. Now, I don't know about middle school. I've asked kids that before, and I have a student asking me again now, and it's been a no. But things change, so I'm actually going to ask again. But I definitely in high school you can take 2 languages, because sometimes that's your thing. You just want to, you know, you want to have a couple languages, so that's just considered your elective. Yes. All right. So let's finish up and then. Okay, expunging grades. And I told the kids this too. Any of the classes that they take that are high school credits, you can remove them from their transcripts. You expunge them, the grade gets erased out. And then for the most part, you're gonna be repeating that class. Like sometimes somebody might take, let's say they take French in 7th grade, and they do poorly, and then they said, I don't really wanna even take French again. So then they start out with a different language in 8th grade. But for the most part, you're going to be repeating it because you've got that foundation, and you will, you know, go on to, down that path. Same with the maths. If you expunge algebra and repeat algebra, that's mostly the one we get repeated, more so than geometry. They're just gone. And the only thing to remember is you have to do it, like, it doesn't happen automatically. And these forms do get submitted, to us, if you're a rising 7th or 8th grader, and then if, well, this doesn't apply to, well, in 8th grade, I'll tell you, when you go on to Heritage, they go to Heritage, so a lot of people do expunge grades 8th to 9th. It's the beauty of trying things, that's why I say, if you guys are interested in language, try a language in middle school, it's easier, it really is. Okay, and then the online summer classes, we do have online summer classes through Virtual Loudon. They're for advancement purposes only. Like, so you can't take algebra, have had a poor grade in there, and instead of expunging, I mean, you still probably want to expunge and repeat, you cannot take it in summer school that way. It has to be taken here at school. So the courses, the only really courses we have offered right now for you guys, if you have a rising 7th grader that somehow you felt like the math, they're in math 6 and you felt like maybe that was a misplacement and they really should be in algebra the next year, then we sometimes will, we have to have a recommendation all around to do math 7 over the summer, and there's no fee for that. So occasionally, I did have 2 students do that last year, and it worked out fine. It was the right thing that we did for those students. Now, rising 8th grade, we really only have math classes, and we never recommend you take algebra, even though it is an option, because you're taking a very difficult class in a very short period of time. You have to be a really unusual situation. Yes.
Can our student take geometry?
Yeah.
Yes, I was just gonna say that, yes, but we do find that kids take geometry over the summer, and that has worked out well. If you take geometry over the summer, then you could advance to the Algebra 2 trig, which will be taught here.
So they take the class and they have to take an exam or something?
Yes, it's a full credit class. There is a fee though, it's about $700, okay, these online classes. Now Math 7, there's no fee for that but these classes, yes, there is a fee. But I'll tell you, the ones that do it, it's just because that's their path and they're excited and they want to do it.
How long are these courses in the summer?
What?
How long do they run?
Well, they start, I can't think of the dates right now, where Virtual Loudon's coming to see us. They usually start at the beginning of June and they end somewhere in August. But you do them at your own pace. So, I mean, there's a pacing guide. You've got it. You can't just, I had one student last year that did the whole class before they left for an out-of-country trip, like the end of June. So, but that's highly unusual. It's going to take somebody all summer. But we do have kids that take geometry, and we've had success with that. But we don't recommend algebras. But if you want algebra, we can talk about it. It's just not a good idea. Yes.
And then if they take the test and they didn't get good grades, they can again take geometry in 8th grade.
They could, right. If you don't get the grade you want or whatever, you can repeat it. Yeah, I mean, it's not even, we would just, again, we'd have to expunge that grade and you would repeat it. That's fine too. But you can look on Virtual Loudon, the website. Yeah, I put that on here. And so you can peruse that. When I get more specific information from them, they're coming to meet with all the counselors in a few weeks, I will send that out. And, but we really are limited. But let me tell you, and just reiterate again about the languages. You can't take the language between 7th and 8th grade, but between 8th and 9th grade, you can take, the level 1 or 2, or even level 3 for 2 of the languages, with a fee. But again, it's an option, and people are doing it because it is there. So what should you do now? Your students will all be getting these presentations. I'll be finished up by the end of next week. And you can get on there, discuss things with your child. You have till February 22nd to make those choices. Because sometimes, the kids that come home, they don't say anything. And we used to, years ago, we'd have a booklet we'd send home, and we'd have we'd have so much to send home. And now everything's online, except for that academic career plan is on paper.
and they're not used to paper, but, you know, and sometimes they don't tell you what they've done, and, so now you know. The program of studies, you can access that, that gives you detailed information on everything you wanna know, you can always call us. So look in your student view with them and just make sure you're okay with their selections. And then, again, the February 22nd. After that, you have to make it through us. They start doing staffing, so we need to have, you know, we really need to know by the end of February what your kids need to take. And if they want the robotics or the dramatic, you gotta sign up for that now, because, you know, if you don't sign up for it by 22nd, we're not gonna be putting anybody in that later, yes.
My question is regarding those robotics and dramatics. Is there such thing giving up resource time to put?
No, resources required. We have people that ask that. I know, I don't need resource, but everybody's required to have resource, so.
if a child taking world languages, my child takes German, and then music, that is his hardest work, and then mostly drama as well, or coding, he can have it all.
Yeah, the robotics, right, they have to make a choice. And I think that's why we're adding in, again, the languages over the summer, because we are adding more of these other classes in middle school, and then they've been, you know, they weren't always available for rising ninth graders to take the languages like they are now. That's a new thing for them. And a couple other, just to mention, through Virtual Loudon between 8th and 9th grade, there's PE is available online. I've had kids do that before. And what is it, the languages, of course, the maths, and the economic and personal finance class. So the reason that sometimes people do that, even though there's a fee, it does open up their schedules for those other classes, because it is limited, and there's so many options, which is really, it's nice. It's nice there's so many options, but it's unfortunate they can't do it all. So any more questions? Any additional questions? That is the end. Yes.
Is there some place we can see online for which classes our kids should be taking if they're interested in going to the academies of Loudon for high school?
You can get on, if you go on the Loudoun County website, you can just put in the Academies of Loudon, and if you navigate through there, you can find out just what their general progression of classes. We are going to have the Academies of Loudon come here and speak to our students, though. So you can go ahead and peruse that a while, but they're going to get more information. That's why.
But it's not going to be before February 22nd. So we're going to be making decisions in the next week.
Oh, right.
For next year that I mean, I didn't know when my daughter was in 6th grade that she needed to be in Algebra 1 this year for 7th grade in order to advance for it. I think that these are things that are important for parents to know, so that they're keeping that in mind when they're making these decisions.
Yeah.
And I just didn't hear you mention anything about
Right.
it.
Algebra 1 is not required for the engineering part of Loudon Academy.
It is. You're required to have geometry before you go to any of the academies. So with what I've found, honestly, there's so many people, so many applicants to these programs, and your kids are on certain math tracks. So if you try to bump your kids up in math and they don't do well, they're not going to have a chance. The kids, the AET part, last time when I was in 8th grade, they were required to have geometry. For AOS, you could have algebra and take geometry over the summer. But it just seemed like I don't think anybody got in without just the algebra. And I'll tell you, one of the things too is because taking the SAT tests that they do in 8th grade in the fall kind of is more geared toward kids that had higher levels of math. Does that make sense? But when the academy comes over, they're only really talking to our current 7th graders. So if you're a 6th grade parent, we might have an information session at some point. It might be, it's usually at the beginning of the following year. But definitely you go on the academy, or do you have a current sixth grader? Or, yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Seventh.
Yeah, right, yeah, I do, yeah. So if you are a sixth grade parent, you can talk to Ms. Blevins about, it's really the math and the science, and they need to have like A+++, their recommendations have to be off the charts, they do a personality test now. It's just not easy, but it's wonderful, it's absolutely wonderful, but it's, that's just what we know for now, and they are coming in to talk to the students, we just don't have the plan yet, yes.
Who teaches the robotics? What kind of a teacher?
It's a tech ed teacher, and it is Miss Webb. She's actually designed the curriculum, was part of the curriculum design in the county, and so it's a tech ed teacher, yes.
Okay, and then also, just to piggyback on what you're saying, parents really need to look ahead with their children, get off Facebook, get off Instagram, and really sit down, because I've got a senior right now. It didn't affect him because of his direction and what he's doing, but a lot of my friends are like, my kid has been set on going to UVA for years, and if only we knew, rather than taking 2 years of this language and 2 years of that, they wanted 5 to 6 years with the AP. You know, that's what that college wanted. So you need to, that pathways word that you're using, Mrs. Cole, is true for college. I mean, you have to really look at it.
You
and
do,
see.
what they want. And
do
what
they want, AP World History in 10th grade will kick your kids' butt, no matter how smart they are. But my kids wanted this particular college, so they're taking that class, and there's anxiety, there's tears, but there's a balance. But they also have that desire to do that. So you have to look, that plan is so important, Ms. Cole. I totally agree with you.
Yeah,
Looking ahead.
and it's different for every child, because we also, some kids don't even go to college. They're gonna get an apprenticeship, or they're going to maybe go to like a nursing school or things. There's so many options.
And Monroe is fabulous.
It's wonderful. So we're hoping they'll come over
Yes.
and they'll talk about all the programs, and
There's so many options out there.
and
that
I'll
I
tell
just
them that
think
the
we have to
parents
be
would
aware
like more. Maybe I can see if they'll do a parent coffee for parents. We'll see if we can get that before
No,
the
I
end
just
of the
think
year.
it's so important to just keep looking ahead and what classes, and like next year for my daughter to have balance, an elective she's taking is outdoor adventure, because she won't have PE anymore. But you need that balance, something that's gonna be, wow, but she's taking a lot of AP classes.
Yeah,
And that's
outdoor
what she-
adventure. Now that, I haven't even heard of that one before. That must be a new one, outdoor adventure.
And I
That
love
sounds
this
like fun.
dramatic thing. It's not for any of my kids now, but for my
Yeah.
4th grader, she would love that class.
Yeah,
So I'm
I
excited.
know.
That's why I still come to these.
I know, it's, and thing, because you know what, things change.
Yes, that's
Things
why I'm
change
here.
every year. That's why I said, this is what we have now. I'm telling you what we have now, but you gotta always keep posted, because things do change. What's offered, even like in the summer, what's offered, it's all changes, yes. Go ahead.
I missed the part that for AOS application, like they changed the whole application process now, because before it was different. Now they do personal and narrative. But like,
Oh, I just said they do like a personality test as part of, like back when I was in 8th grade, they did like there was a test, I forget what it's called right now, because I've been away for a couple of years.
California critical,
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
yeah,
something.
California, thank you, good. Yeah, the California critical thinking type of test. It's sort of like a personality test that you can't study for anything, it's just how you make decisions. And they're still using that. Now, who knows? They could come up with something different before, or something additional.
So do you apply in 8th grade? for
Yes,
that?
yes.
Okay. And that's for your 4 years of high school, all 4 years?
For the most part, the Academy of Engineering and Technology, there's only like a 2-year commitment for that, and then you can continue on, and you can even you can apply for, the students can apply for like 11th and 12th grade too. But that's emerged, you know, that they've just, because that's fairly new, that's how they started, and that's how they're emerging it right now. And so that could change too. It might just be a 4-year commitment again at some point, but right now that's how it works.
For the summer online courses, is there an application deadline that we need to?
There will be,
There
but
will
we
be.
don't have
We
it
don't-
yet.
okay.
Yeah, we don't have it yet. Yes.
It's a dumb question, but let's say your child's interested in both the robotics and there's dramatics, but if they have a preference one over the other, is it something they can try for both? And if one doesn't work, they can try for the second, or is it they have to pick one or the other?
Well, I would say they could put both down. I mean, truly, why not? But they would have to have, I guess, 2 alternatives, and they wouldn't be going for the language. They would, yeah, have to give up the language. I guess it's possible.
Well, if they want one or the other, but they have a preference for one, but if I don't get this, I'd rather try them for this, but I can't do it. So I
But we
get
can't
this.
do, yeah, because if it's a lottery, it'll just be random.
So the lottery happens at the same time, or
Yeah.
one and then the other.
Yeah, we can't say if you don't get here, I'll stick you in there. But if you want both, you could, I guess you could put both down. I don't see why you couldn't. But you have to want to do both.
No, she
Or-
wants the language, but
Oh, she wants a language. You're just thinking, and then she could take.
well, in other words, like sometimes
Yeah, if she gets in both lotteries,
They could-
I
she
don't
has to select
know.
one
If
over
you
the
get
other.
in both lotteries, gosh, I'll have to check with my administration.
If you wanted
Yeah.
to. So if you got both,
You could retract from one. Yeah, because there'll be a wait list. Yeah, we would pick another person. But I don't know. I hope everybody doesn't do that. But most kids don't, honestly, they're such different pathways. Most kids wouldn't want both.
you'd be surprised.
They want it all. I know. They want it all.
Is there any way that people can go to look at the different colleges and what their criteria is if a child is interested in
Yes,
a
there
college?
is. There's something on Naviance. You can get into their Naviance sites, and you can go on to like College Match. That's a good way to do it. And we were going to do this in 8th grade, and you can look up the colleges, and within there, they'll have, this is what we did last time I was in 8th grade. You'll see, like, you can find their average grade point, their average SAT scores. I don't remember ever looking up the language requirements for it, but you might be able to find that in there. We just didn't do that. Naviance, that's our, yes, the kids know how to get onto that. It's one of the icons that they have, and they've all been on there. So you can go into their Naviance and check that out. And parents can get their own login for Naviance.
That's great.
Yeah, so we can
And that's really helpful to see if your child wants to go to a grade once you get into high school. It's forward thinking that if they have a 3.8 and they want to go to the school with a certain, it will like grab them of where they place with everybody else that applied from Heritage. So
Yeah.
they can see what are their chances of getting into that university. Or
It really is cool, and
It's wonderful.
it doesn't hurt to start that now. We usually don't get into the college searching and matching until 8th grade, but why, if it's there and you want to look at it, you should, because again, it's really their
It's also
pathway.
setting a realistic
Yeah.
place for them.
Right.
To get through 8th grade, it's not gonna completely impact when we go to college.
No, the only thing
That's
I
what
know,
I'm like
that's
sitting
why.
there stressing about.
No, do not stress, because I told the kids, you're better off getting the best grade you can in the classes that you're taking in your own pathway, honestly. And that's what matters most. It really is. And the middle school classes, they don't go with them. It's just those high school classes that do go with them. They do go on their transcripts, but they can repeat them. Hopefully that they're the ones that they're working hardest on, and if they're in those classes, that they prioritize. These ones really do count. Some of the classes are hard. They can repeat them and get a better grade. Occasionally, though, we'll have a student repeat a language and they don't do any better, because that's just yeah. Sometimes that happens. That's just where they are with the language. Most kids really do better, and it's worth it, because you get a better foundation. What we don't want is you get into high school and you're like, oh my gosh, I really didn't get it back then, and now I kind of moved along too quickly, and then you're really struggling, and those classes can't be
But
repeated.
most colleges would expect language.
Well,
3
it
years.
depends on your major. It depends on
3
your
years.
major, and it depends on the college. Like I said, I went to the career fair, and I asked many colleges about this, about the language requirement based on their, what their career choices were. And if you're not, you know, if you're more like engineering type, said that it didn't matter about the language. But now you're saying with UVA, your kids are right there applying, maybe they're requiring that just for the general
Yeah,
application.
that's what another parent shared, that if I only knew, I wouldn't
But
have.
check on
But
that
that could have been
though.
the field that she was going
It could
to.
be in her field, right,
And
that's what I'm
the important
saying.
thing. Like when you said engineering.
Yeah, if she is trying to apply for international studies,
Yes,
that
exactly.
would be the
Right,
requirement.
and she just did two
Right,
and
it
two, and they
depends.
wanted more of a solid, like 6-year to the AP level. And so
It
if your
depends
child
on
knows,
your-
my kid has no idea what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So he's more general studies going to colleges, so.
Yeah,
so
well, here's what they like, here's what they've always told us, they like to see that you have like a pathway. They don't want to see that you took this elective, then a different elective, then a third and a fourth elective. They want to see that you stuck with something. So, like for the, you know, if they see somebody stuck with 4 to 6 years of language, you know, that looks like you're, you know, really committed with that. But somebody maybe who's really interested in theater or the arts, and they've done, you know, all those, but they didn't throw in something else, that, you know, they like that you kind of have a pathway. I think that's what they're looking for too. And just like middle school and high school and colleges, sometimes things change around too. But
And Ms. Cole, they just changed the advanced and standard diploma, and the standard diploma is not, that's nothing to,
it's
you
not
know,
that different.
Yeah, or
No.
or it's not. What it does, it just opens up more electives. So if your child is more art oriented, I have a friend whose child is brilliant, but she's more art. She might be going to Monroe, and that opens up a lot more electives. She doesn't need to take all the certain level of classes.
Right, right,
And,
right.
So it's more of the.
It depends on your
tweak of that
pathway.
kid.
Right.
So it's not like it's a lesser, I don't want to use the word lesser diploma, an advanced versus a standard. It's just the way it's designed. It's just a different name.
It's just different name, it really
Yeah,
is.
and
It's
that
not like
kid
when
is
you
still
apply to
gonna go to
college.
college with
that
a standard
you-
diploma.
Yes, that's what I said.
And the kid with advanced diploma may not even go to college.
Right.
It's
A lot depends on that
student.
language piece.
Yeah, and
So,
the student.
And you
It's
need to have that
okay.
4 years of English, but then the standard diploma, you only need 3 of the other classes. But that would just be, you know, just your special
Like one of
pathway.
my students, one of my kids is almost 4 or 5 APs every year. I have a daughter who will probably never take an AP class. It's okay.
So,
And she'll knock it out of the ballpark. when
right,
she's
so
an
it just
adult.
shows the difference in the students with your experience that you can share with us from a parent perspective.
Oh, hey, back there.
In Parent View, where is the course selection?
It's under course request. There's a tab. You know where the grade book is?
Okay, so I can't pull it up on the phone probably, so it's probably only like a
Oh, maybe so.
We ran into that, yes, we did not pull it up.
Oh, you'll have to do it on the, you didn't see it?
No.
That tab's
it's
not
available.
Oh, yeah, you, okay, yeah, it's there.
Okay, so
It-
what is it called again?
It's called course request tab. It's right next to grade book,
Okay.
the course request tab. Okay, any other questions? I know people had to go. Okay, yes.
Just a small question about electives for rising seventh graders.
Okay.
It's like it says if you didn't do band this year in sixth grade, you have no options to do band going forward?
Mostly not unless you do something over the summer to get caught up a bit. You can take guitar though. Guitar is a new course. Oh, really? Well, I don't know. What I would probably do right now, I don't even know if this option, this might be on this thing here. So I don't know how much I should say. We'll talk afterwards. I'll just maybe throw out a couple ideas. Anybody else?
If they don't move on to do band,
Yeah,
that breaks my heart in one avenue.
I know.
But then both my boys are very art driven, and I love that too. That's not a big thing that's going to go against them, art or band.
No.
For high school or
No,
any of that.
no. And if you take band and then you take a year off, you actually, they'll let you go back in band. You know what I'm saying? Especially in high school, yes.
Okay.
Because you have enough, you have
They're
enough.
always going to want people.
Yeah, I think so too. I know, because there's so many options.
So if the child takes course and decides wants to try with Art 7 or Art 8, we can go back to course no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah, there's, yeah.
It's a
Chorus, all those classes are gonna be available. Sometimes our tech ed classes get, full because the part-time and the fact, so I've had did have the kids pick an alternate for that, but I don't think that's gonna be a problem. It's just the 7th grade class right now is very, very large. It's a very, very large class. The 6th grade class isn't as large. So, you know, there's just a little more, availability, but 7th grade, it's pretty tight for all our options. So anyway, we'll be here for a few minutes anyway. You can always email us, call us. Just stay tuned with more information, especially from Virtual Loudon and then the academies when I find out more information on that, because people are interested. And we only know what they tell us. So thank you very much.
Right. But there are some 7th graders who do that.